And welcome everyone to this episode of Craze's Corner. We're doing a little bit of scenarios today. The NFL draft is coming up, so we're talking about teams that have been mocked to be taking some wide receivers here and what happens to their current wide receiver room if they do draft a guy. Is there still value there? And if they don't draft a guy, which guy do we want that's in the current wide receiver room? I'm joined by Will. How are we doing tonight?
Breathing.
Yeah, we both talked a little bit before the show. We're not all in on Tet McMillan as the number one wide receiver in this class. He's been mocked top 10, very high, or for most people, he's been mocked top 10 wide receiver one. But we're not on that same page. We both kind of like Burden a little bit better, but I think he will fall a little bit later into the first round. So these guys, there's definitely guys that are wide receiver needy teams for sure. We've got 3 wide receiver needy teams coming up. And I think that all 3 of these teams will add a wide receiver at some point during the draft. But as we said, we like the running backs in this draft class. If you've watched any of our previous shows, wide receivers we're not quite as high on as we are the running backs. But we're going to start with my Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen, currently the wide receiver 1 with Coker and Leggett, who both rookies last year. Coker looked great. Leggett struggled with the drops, had a wrist injury. But I think that they're a team that's definitely got to take a wide receiver. They haven't done anything at wide receiver besides re-sign David Moore this offseason, and they need to get Bryce some more talent. So if they add a wide receiver, whether that's at 8 or in the second round, I think that they're going to. So the question becomes Leggett, who had not a great rookie year. Thielen, who right now, if I was to stat out the Panthers for the entire season, Thielen would probably be a top 15 fantasy wide receiver just due to sheer volume. And Coker, who looked good as well. So is there anyone, if the Panthers do take a guy, let's assume they take a guy in the second round, do you still think Adam Thielen will have some flex value? Or would you bet on Coker or Leggett? Who would you pick out of those wide receivers?
As long as Adam's hamstring doesn't flare up, he's always going to have value. He's going to get open. He's going to make a great catch. It's just his health. He's getting older, and can he stay healthy? And unfortunately for Adam, like that hamstring, as being a Viking guy, like when that hamstring went, it was 3 or 4 weeks. And so, that's my only worry with Adam. But I think, like, actually he could be a sneaky wide receiver pickup this year in redraft leagues if his health gives him the full season.
Yeah, to me, I like Adam Thielen, even if they draft Tet at 8.
Yeah.
Or they trade back. I think Thielen is just a different type of wide receiver. The Panthers really don't have any elite tight ends either. You're looking at Tremble and Johnson. So it's like Thielen really fills a void that I don't think anyone coming in is going to take. So I like Thielen as a sneaky wide receiver value. But for the rest of it, like Leggett, to me, he had a wrist injury. They were going to do surgery. They opted out of the surgery. He's been dealing with this injury since college. And I'm like, at what point why did we avoid the surgery? So I'm not high on that. Coker looked good. I still just want to see more from him. So I think it's Thielen. And even if they draft Tet, I'm not really that interested in Tet for fantasy purposes. But let's move on to a team that did just make a wide receiver move, and that's the Patriots. Drake May has a new wide receiver 1 in Stephon Diggs coming off the ACL. But he, according to the medical experts, everybody is ahead of schedule. But apparently they're saying for Stephon Diggs is that he's actually ahead of the people who are ahead of schedule in his ACL rehab. So he's maybe actually ahead of schedule at this point on a wide receiver depth chart with Kendrick Bourne, Mac Hollins, Jalen Polk, Demario Douglas. It's really Stephon Diggs and, the rest of them. So if they take a guy, do you think that Stephon Diggs can still be a wide receiver 1 at this point in his career? Yeah. No. So are you interested in the Patriots if they draft another wide receiver? Are you like just completely out on this receiving room?
No, I think, look, it's people. If you weren't a Patriot fan, you're kind of jealous and resent the Patriots' success. So now that they're down, it's, oh my God, they're awful, they're horrible. It's all Tom Brady. I think they'll do better. I think May will do better. I think Diggs is a wide receiver too at this point. So it just depends. But I'm not sure they're drafting a wide receiver in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is second or third round, so it's a development person. We'll see.
Yeah, to me, this wide receiver room, like if they take another guy in the second round, you're looking at Diggs, who has the money. They just drafted Polk. Douglas has looked the best out of the rest of the wide receivers in the room. They have Kendrick Bourne. They brought in Mac Hollins. So it's kind of like you're just picking out of this group. I expect Drake May to take a step forward. Hopefully they can get him some more offensive line help. I like Diggs as
That's what they need to draft. That's what they need to draft.
That is what they need to draft, but I still think that they'll add a wide receiver to this room.
Yeah.
And I think really adding a wide receiver to this room helps Drake May more than it does do anything at fantasy value for the wide receiver.
The wide receiver, right.
Yeah, so I like Drake May in this situation when they add another wide receiver. Stephon Diggs, I think he'll be their wide receiver one. I just don't think it's going to amount to, top 12 fantasy season or anything like that. I think he'll be more closer into like that 18 to 24 range if he is their wide receiver one.
How long will he keep his cool with a running game?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
They got a defensive coach now, so we'll see if the Patriots can turn things around. And then the last team, they added a new quarterback earlier on in this offseason, and that's Justin Fields and the New York Jets. Their wide receiver room, we've talked about two not great wide receiver room. The Jets, they may just have the worst wide receiver room of all. They have Garrett Wilson, and then their wide receiver 2 is Malachi Corley. They have Xavier Gibson, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Alan Lazard. So they really need someone to step up at the wide receiver 2 position. Tet has been mocked to them at 7. And if they draft a guy first, second round to pair with Garrett Wilson, I think that hurt Garrett Wilson's value a lot. I think Garrett Wilson has current value because he's going to be a target hog in this offense. And, it's going to be a run-first offense with Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. That's where this team wants to go with the defensive head coach. And we've seen Garrett Wilson can have value when he's the only guy there. But you add another talented wide receiver into this group and you start passing the targets around, whatever they're going to be. And I think I would be out on Garrett Wilson as a wide receiver 1. You'd maybe be looking at him as like a guy you're like, can I play? Can I not play? Which is what he was down the stretch when they added Devontae Adams. It was like, maybe you can play him, maybe you can't play him. And I think that's kind of where he's going to be if they draft another wide receiver high here. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, and just Justin Fields, right? I like Justin Fields. I think he has talent. I just, these guys go to teams that you're like, why? Why did you do that? What were you thinking? I know it's the money, but
gotta be making that money, Will. It's all about the money.
It's all about the money. And I don't blame them. Careers are short, but I just don't have faith. Like they could be the first team to draft a wide receiver, and I'm not sure if it really changes where they're going to be at from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, like I said, I think it just hurts Garrett Wilson's value the higher they take a wide receiver. Yeah. But if they don't take a wide receiver in the first 3-4 rounds, and then you're sitting there and Garrett Wilson's still the only guy, I think he's got wide receiver 1 upside because he's going to have 150-plus targets. He'll break 1,200 yards.
They'll be running one wide receiver offense. Wide receiver out there.
They'll have their 3 running backs. They'll have Garrett Wilson.
And that's it.
Yeah. Maybe they'll draft Tyler Warren. They can have like 4 tight end sets.
Yes.
Garrett Wilson.
4 tight end sets. Yes.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But there we go. There's 3 wide receiver rooms. What happens if they draft a wide receiver? Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, Will, again for joining me. We'll be back again next week.
See you next week.
See ya.
All right, we're out. I will.
Are we?
Well, it's telling me. I hit in recording.